Tonight, seismic political developments in Nigeria. President Bola Tinubu has declared a state of emergency in Rivers State over the political crisis that has been evolving in that state. President Tinubu made the declaration in a nationwide broadcast just about an hour ago. The president said he was disturbed by issues that were happening in the state and that the problems appeared to be never-ending and that efforts to calm the situation had failed to yield any fruit. President Tinubu said he was invoking Section 305, subsection 5 of the 1999 Constitution to make his declaration. The president suspended Governor Enyinnaya Fubara of Rivers State and his deputy, Professor Ngozi Odu, for 6 months. He also suspended members of the State House of Assembly for the same duration. He said he was saddened by what was happening in Rivers State and that the governor had demolished the House of Assembly complex for over 18 months and never bothered to rebuild it up till now. He said the state was at a standstill and since the crisis started, and that the people of the state were no longer getting the dividends of democracy. Take a listen to what some of the president had to say.
It has become inevitably compelling for me to invoke the provision of the Section 305 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended, to declare a state of emergency in Rivers State with effect from today, 18th March, year 2025, and I so do. By this declaration, the governor of Rivers State, Mr. Enyinnaya Fubara, his deputy, Mrs. Ngozi Odu, and all elected members of the House of Assembly state are hereby suspended for an initial period of 6 months. In the meantime, I hereby nominate Vice Admiral Advocate Ibas, retired, as administrator to take charge of the affairs of the state and the interests of the good people of Rivers State. For the avoidance of doubt, this declaration does not affect the judicial arm of Rivers State, which shall continue to function in accordance with their constitutional mandate. The administrator will not make any new laws. It will, however, be free to formulate regulations and may be found necessary to do its job, but such regulations will need to be considered and approved by the Federal Executive Council and promoted by the President for the state. This declaration has been published in the Federal Gazette, a copy of which has been forwarded to the National Assembly in accordance with the Constitution. It is my fervent hope that this inevitable intervention will help to restore peace and order in Rivers State by awakening all the contenders to the constitutional imperatives, binding on all political players in the Rivers State in particular and Nigeria as a whole. The Supreme Court then made some orders to restore the state to immediate constitutional democracy. These orders include the immediate passing of an appropriation bill by the Rivers State House of Assembly, which up to now has not been facilitated. Some militants had threatened fire and brimstone against their perceived enemies of the governor, who has up to now not disowned them. Apart from that, both the House and the governor have not been able to work together. Both of them do not realize that they are in office to work together for the peace and good governance of the state. The latest security report made available to me show that between yesterday and today, there have been disturbing incidents of vandalization of pipelines by some militants without governor taking any action to curtail them. I have, of course, given stand order to the security agencies to ensure safety of lives of good people of Rivers State and the oil pipelines. With all this and many more, no good and responsible president will stand by and allow the grave situation to continue without taking remedial steps.
That's the president of Nigeria, Bola Ahmed Tinubu there, and he was speaking just about an hour ago when he declared a state of emergency in Rivers State, which is in the heart of Nigeria's Niger Delta region. Well, for more on this, I'm joined now in the studio by Senator Enyinnaya Abaribe, who is a senior lawmaker in the National Assembly and is a member of the opposition APGA party. Thank you very much indeed for coming in. And let me just say that this was not us sort of doorstepping you. I mean, you were here to talk about your new book, Unbundled, and hopefully we'll have the time to get to it in a minute. But then you are a member of the National Assembly. You occupy a pivotal role or position in the politics of Nigeria. And this development is going to come to the National Assembly for approval, and you are going to be there to cast your vote. What is your reaction to this declaration of a state of emergency in Rivers State by the president?
Well, first of all, let me just say that we're living in very interesting times. And because I came to do something else, you know, and I was here and I watched the broadcast just like you. So I think I'm not in a position to take a stand to say, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to go back. We're going to talk with our colleagues. We in the opposition are also going to meet, definitely. And then we're going to look at the proclamation, the reasons for it, and the best way forward. I think when we get there, then I'm not going to preempt what the National Assembly is going to do. Don't forget that there are two arms of the National Assembly, both the
House of Representatives
and
the Senate, where you are.
Yeah, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah,
but it's very unfortunate that we have gotten to this point. You know.
But you have been following the story, though. I mean, it just didn't arguably everyone in Nigeria, I mean, certainly somebody in your position in the National Assembly would have been following the story.
We've been following. And
do you think this was the right action to have been taken by the president?
I cannot. I mean, every president has a responsibility for law and order. And given all the circumstances, maybe the president felt that this is the best way to go. If it was me, I would probably not have followed this line. Maybe I would have preempted all this, because there were, I think, opportunities to have, you know, dealt with this matter. And somehow, well, we're where we are. There's nothing we can do about it. So tomorrow, we will certainly look into it.
Yes, but I mean, given that the APC dominates in the National Assembly, and you mentioned you're a member of the opposition, your APGA, which is a minority party in the National Assembly, there are a couple of other parties there as well, the PDP, Labour, and so on. What sort of I don't know, optics is coming through for you as a result of this?
Let me just
as a member of the opposition.
Let me put it this way. I do not think that when we're going to look at matters of national importance,
right,
that we're going to look at it in terms of whether we are majority or minority. We will actually look at it in terms of national interest. What is the best interest of Nigeria in all this? I do not think that you can safely today say, oh, because somebody is APC, he must vote where the government says he should vote. It doesn't follow. It does not follow. We will look at it in the national interest. And I think that almost everybody in the National Assembly, they are reasonable men and women and people of goodwill, and who will, by their oath of office, put the country first.
Right.
That is what is important.
Right. But let me put it this way to you, and I'm not trying to sort of, lay traps for you or anything. That's not the intention. We're simply trying to get our own heads around what has just happened, because just like you, I mean, we literally heard this an hour ago.
Yes.
You probably have more familiarity with the Nigerian constitution than many others. And based on that knowledge that you have, was he right to suspend the governor and his deputy, or was he simply empowered constitutionally to deal with the reasons he was declaring a state of emergency and then return the state very quickly to democratic rule?
Well, you're still setting a trap for me. You're telling me to now.
I'm asking you a question.
You're asking me to say
but you're a
what I
lawmaker.
may have to say on the floor tomorrow.
You're a lawmaker.
I will plead for you to give me a little time. I need to sit with my colleagues. We need to look at the Constitution again.
Right.
But I know that Section 305, sections 305,
subsection
5 and 6 or so, gives the president the power.
Right.
And whenever that power is invoked, don't forget that this is not the first time that a state of emergency has been invoked in states. It's been done under
But it was challenged.
Obviously, it was challenged, and then, of course, it will have to be approved by the National Assembly.
Yes.
That's why I really don't want to.
No, I understand
Go
that.
ahead.
But let's move away from the constitutional side to the political side. I mean, we're already getting people texting us, members of the Joy Youth Council, member of this council, and so on and so on, out of River State, appearing to be very aggrieved and saying that the president sounded like he was laying a catalogue of accusations against the governor of River State and not against his political opponent,
Charles, I would prefer not to discuss it now, because no matter how you go, the broadcast is there, and we saw the broadcast. And there are two sides to this story, and it just seems like only one side was found guilty. So you could see it, and if people make that insinuation, well, that is their own. But I will not say anything until we
I
get
understand
to the floor.
that. And again, I'm not trying to push you into saying anything you don't want to say. It's just that you are a treasure trove of information. In fact, your book is all about the fact that you are one of the best informed parliamentarians in this country. So to have the privilege of having you sitting there.
Yes, but then you should also give me the privilege of having some time to digest
with a breaking
what is going
story.
on.
With a breaking story. I mean, you couldn't buy it with gold.
I wouldn't want for us to preempt what was going to happen.
I understand that.
But I think that,
but on the
like
issue,
I said at the beginning, every president has a responsibility for law and order. Same thing like a state governor and so on. Of course, there are some aspects of that broadcast that I didn't agree with. That will come tomorrow.
What were those aspects?
No, that will come tomorrow.
Well, I mean,
no governor has responsibility for directing police, army, and all that. And then you turn around and say, hey, governor, he didn't do anything.
Right.
I mean, how? Who do you blame, really, here? But
well, I mean,
we get to that.
He mentioned security reports suggesting the attacks on pipelines as one of the reasons why he sort of stepped into the breach there, because he said the governor had not taken any action. What is? I
wouldn't know. You can ask me. I'm not a governor. Maybe he is in a much better position to answer that question.
Okay. Well, what about the fact that an administrator has been appointed? I mean, is that the way that it normally would happen?
Yes, that's exactly what happens when there is a
state of emergency.
A state of emergency.
Right.
Once then, normally an administrator is appointed, and very clearly cannot make laws, which means that he can't do anything. He will simply deal with the situation.
Well, they said he can make regulations.
What is a
regulation? Which is almost the same thing as saying that he can pass decrees.
No. Well, I mean, whatever
he's a former member of the armed forces.
He's not going to go against what the Constitution says. He's not going to go beyond what the laws of the state has already, been put forward. Right. It's just for his administrative convenience. He can decide to appoint a few people to help him and all that. They don't now need to be confirmed by anybody and all that. I think that's what it means.
So what will be the role of the National Assembly now following this declaration of emergency?
Well, I think the Constitution says very clearly that the National Assembly will have to approve it.
Right.
Yes, and then, of course, if there's any other regulation that needs to be made or any other thing, according to the Constitution, that's what we will have to do in the National Assembly.
What will that process entail?
Well, the process will be that tomorrow, the Senate President and the Speaker on one side, they will read the proclamation and words, and then we'll ask for...
Will it involve a joint sitting of the two houses?
Usually not.
Right. Because you said the President will sit next to the Speaker.
Yeah, usually not.
Right.
Joint sittings are done basically when we have to receive the budget.
Right.
So I think that the deliberations will be different and done. And we'll now see what will happen. I think that eventually we must come to some consensus. No one wants a situation where there is anarchy in the country. Nobody wants that.
But did it look to you like at River State was heading towards anarchy?
I didn't see it. I thought that there was still a window, to fix things, but then
a window for a political settlement.
For a political settlement.
Right.
I thought that there was still a window, but well, it has happened. We have to deal with it.
Right. Okay. Well, I want to thank you for being very benevolent in your answers, although you were rather cagey in your answers. Let's just be ineluctably clear on that. But I can appreciate that, and it's not really fair to sort of doorstep you and ram these things down your throat. But the truth, of course, is that you are, as I said, a very well-respected member of the National Assembly. You've been there for a very long time, and you have a lot of experience as a lawmaker. You've chaired innumerable committees. You've been a Senate minority leader. You've also been a deputy governor.
Yes.
And you've had the privilege of being impeached as a deputy.
No, not impeached. Attempt.
They did impeach you, but you said it was all over because you'd already resigned.
Yes. What happened really that, in fact, I was joking with someone today. I said, well, in all this impeachment thing going on in Rivers, they ought to consult me because I'm an expert on impeachment.
Yeah, you were. They made it 3 attempts.
They made 3 attempts. None worked, before I resigned. So
yeah.
I know.
But they would have nailed you if you hadn't resigned.
Who knows? Since it never happened.
But I mean, in such circumstances, I mean, you really must be a pretty wily politician to have gone through all of that, and survived, not just survived, but thrived in the face of all of that.
Well, what do you want me to say?
Well, I mean, I want to know how you did it, how you pulled it off.
No, it's very clear. I need to also differentiate the times at that time and now. Now, what happened was that the first set of legislators that came in,
this was after 1999.
In 1999,
right,
were far more independent, brought by the people. But subsequently, we now found a situation where, powerful people like the governors and all that, we are now bringing in their boys as legislators. And so we now find the quality of independence in the legislature going down. So today and 1999 cannot just be compared.
Indeed.
That's just the point.
Now, let me just, a lot of these things that I'm mentioning, to be fair, are actually contained in your book,
yes,
which I've skimmed through and which is really very interesting. It's called Unbundled by Enyinnaya Abaribe. He is, of course, as I said, a senator and well regarded in that world and beyond. You were originally, though, set to be an academic. I mean, you do look rather like an academic with your glasses and all the rest of it. But you were originally set to be an academic, then you got into corporate marketing.
Yes.
How did you end up in politics?
And it was a dare. I was complaining about the political things that were going on in 1998 and the quality of people who were coming into politics. And a senior friend of mine and a mentor that challenged me and said, well, you can't complain about people when you stay outside. You know, the dictum that when good men keep quiet, the evil will thrive. And he said, well, if you think that these people are not good enough, why don't you step into the ring? You understand? And I felt that, oh, well, I'm good enough. I think I'm good enough. And so let me go and try. Now, of course, I was burnt the very first time. I went in 1998. I lost the primaries. Didn't even know where they were doing primaries and all that. But you learn. And so I continually learned until then the whole thing about 1998 and the 5 fingers of a leprous hand by late Bola Ige. When all that went away, and then we came into 1999 with a new government, then I came back again, which is one of the things you need to learn in politics. You must be consistent. You cannot jump in, jump out, jump in, jump out. People will never trust you. They will think that you don't have, staying power. So I stayed. And here I am today.
Right. And of course, as I mentioned, all these things are in your book. It's all sort of documented in there. And
Yes.
I would urge people to have a good read of it. But you have had quite a lot of experiences in the Senate as well, as a minority leader, as somebody who was even at one point arrested because of the Nnamdi Kanu debacle.
Precisely. Yeah, it's not here. My experiences in the Senate, and especially some of the intricacies that went on behind, is coming in another book, because I want it to be a standalone.
Okay,
this
right.
one is simply that as I was turning 70, I felt that it was necessary for people to know my thoughts. If somebody says, what does he think about Biafra?
Yeah.
You can go to the
Where
book
does he
and
stand
see.
on things?
Where does he stand on governance? Where does he
Right.
stand on merit? Where does he, all that? That is why I try to do this book. And it's simply a collection of my thoughts, my speeches, and my interviews.
Right.
I think there's an interview between me and you that is also here.
Well, that would be interesting. I haven't seen it. I mean, I've skimmed through the book.
Well,
I skimmed through the more interesting parts of the book, not that bit. But I expect, though, I mean, because this again is a summary of your experiences
Yes.
over time. I mean, I expect, though, that the latest development in the Senate, which risks bringing the Senate into disrepute, which is the suspension of Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan, came too late to make it into your book.
Oh, no, it wouldn't have come into my book.
In any
No,
circumstances.
I would never have come in there. Because as far as I'm concerned, all that happened was a distraction. We actually have what we were elected to do. We were elected to make laws for good governance. We were elected to represent our people. We were elected to make sure that we oversight the government properly, just to make sure that things go well. We were not elected to discuss whether somebody decided to take a seat or not. And I think that luckily that has also gone away by now.
Well, it hasn't, actually. Because, I mean, I was going to ask you. I
think nobody is going to talk about it.
I don't mean to beat
again.
a dead. Well, we are talking
we
about
can't because, okay, the issues are in court.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you cannot talk about something that is pending in court. And so that means that for everyone, until the court's matters are over, then we cannot.
Yeah, but let me put it another way. And again, I don't mean to sort of put you on the spot there, but as I'm sure you know, her story has been talked about at the United Nations, at the Inter-Parliamentary Union, and you were, of course, a former vice chairman of the Senate Committee on
I'm still a member.
Yeah, on inter.
Up till now.
Yeah, but you were vice chairman.
I was a vice chairman of Interparliamentary Affairs.
So you must know a thing or two about the Interparliamentary Union, where she went to lodge her complaints. I mean, do you think going international with her allegations and going to the IPU would strengthen or weaken her hand?
I think that IPU really is government's parliament going there to talk about other things and then corporations. I'm not so sure. I have to plead that I'm not so well aware of the rules. I also think that if you have to go to the IPU, from the time I was there up till now, you have to be nominated by your parliament. So if you go on your own, not nominated, so how will anybody accept such?
Well, from what I have read, according to the workings of the Interparliamentary Union, it has jurisdiction in the determination of applications and individual complaints procedures.
In other words, anybody can wake up and
just
go there?
Any member of a parliament.
Precisely.
Not
so
anybody.
That's why I said that I am not really very much aware of that. But I think the chairman of the Interparliamentary Committee has already said that for this year's meetings that she was not nominated.
So let me say this. Let me ask you this in summary, and I do appreciate your being here. I mean, you've had extraordinary experience. I mean, some people call you a political maverick. Others say you're probably one of the most intelligent senators there ever was in Nigeria. A lot of others say you're very outspoken, that you don't really take any prisoners, and that you have been steadfast in trying to keep that Senate on the right path of rectitude. I mean, what is your reaction to all of that?
I think that there were, I would say, mistakes on both sides. And for someone like me, my job is to bring everyone together. And a few of us have come together and said, we're going to try to make peace. And therefore, let's not make any comments that may be prejudicial. So I will plead that you let us complete that work. With very senior members, we just said we cannot, the country's reputation, the parliament's reputation is at stake. And I think that making further comments will simply jeopardize our work.
I understand that. Well, I was going beyond that to just talk about you generally, but if you put it that way, we're happy to respect that. But
Thank you.
Enyinnaya Abaribe's new book is called Unbundled, and I would certainly recommend it. It is a record of many of his speeches, interviews, opinions, lectures, and so on, captured in various news media. And it would be worth, certainly for people who are interested in Nigerian politics, and from an academic point of view, and purely just from a knowledge point of view, it's well worth having a good read. Senator, I want to thank you very much indeed.
My pleasure to
Sorry, a bit of the time was taken up by President Tinubu's
Oh no, well, it's good
speech
for
and his declaration of a state of emergency, but obviously those kind of things supersede everything else.
Precisely.
Thank you very much indeed. Good to see you again.
My pleasure. Thank you.